Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tina, aka True Reels, and I am coming to you really to talk about grief and sorrow. But please take a few minutes to like my video and subscribe. I hope that you will see that this content is something that not only is helpful to you, but something also that you would like to share with other people. Today we're going to talk about grief and loss, and I know that this is a subject that is near and dear to everyone's heart. There's nobody that's not going to be affected by death. There's nobody that's not going to be affected by loss. You know, if we're here on this earth, some way, somehow, we're going to have that type of experience where somebody passes away, or we lose somebody, or even like we lose a job or a housing or whatever the case may be. There's going to be something that we need, either from a person, people, places, and things that's going to go away. And so I'm just here to talk about my story and to really just talk about how that's affected me and how multiple deaths have had an effect on me and then even my family. So just briefly, I am a mother of two. My daughter is in her mid-20s, and I did have a son. My son was 24 years old when he passed away. He did pass away under some unique circumstances, and he did pass away suddenly. So if anybody is aware of what it's like to have somebody pass away and not be prepared for it, and even when people are prepared for people to pass away, like I've had family members who have passed away and we knew that they were sick. And of course, that doesn't, honestly make it any better. Even if there's an expectation that they may pass away or die. But I think that, you might have a little bit more time to process it, but it's still going to be the same. At the end of the day, it's still going to be a loss, right? But my son went and to the hospital for something that I, didn't believe was life-threatening, and he wound up passing away. And so what was crazy was that, I talked to him, earlier. I actually took him to the hospital. So I was actually by his bedside, when everything went down. And I'm just thinking that, there's no way that when you go to the hospital, unless there's something that is like somebody's rushed to the hospital, you don't normally think that that's going to be something, you think that they'll recover, right? And then it turned out that, there wasn't, he wasn't going to return. And I think that what happens when people pass away suddenly is you have all of those. I feel like for me, it was a little bit harder to process. Like I said, I've had situations where people have passed away in my family, and I've known about it. I've known that they were sick. Like my dad was sick and he passed away when I was in my 30s. And, that was like really hard. And I, was very, very close to my father. So I really didn't, want him to, pass away, but he, wound up passing away of cancer. But like I said, my son was 24, he was young, and of course that's a whole nother thing. Like you really don't expect, first of all, parents don't normally expect their children to pass away before them. So that's a whole nother ball game. And then also, based off of what was going on with him, I didn't expect, for that to happen. So, you kind of grasp, I just remember like really just trying to hold on to all of those moments that took place prior to his passing away, right? So the time that I was in a car with him, the conversation that we had prior to him going to the hospital, you know, the conversation that I had when I was sitting at his bedside. So you're thinking about all of those things that kind of like replaying it back in your mind, you know, any talks that you've had with doctors, any talks that you've had like with nurses and everything. It's just like, you know, all of that. So that was like really difficult. It was very difficult. And so that's pretty much what went through my mind. It's just like, just was, you know, you're in shock. You know, you really don't believe that this is happening. It kind of like, if you've ever heard people say like, pinch me, because they don't believe that it's almost like you're dreaming, you know, and that really is true. You really do feel like that this is unreal. So, you know, for anybody who's had that experience where they have lost somebody and it was like sudden, you know, and or somebody has called you and told you that your loved one has died suddenly, it's just very, very, very difficult to kind of wrap your mind around. So that was very hard. Like I said, you know, I was there by myself, you know, just with him. And so just even calling like the family members and his sister and loved ones and having to explain it, and then having to explain the circumstances surrounding his death to other people, even after, like, you know, I don't want to say like things settled, but like that next day, because then you have this responsibility. It's so much that goes on when people pass away, especially if it's like, you know, whether it's like a child or a parent or a sibling, you know, a grandparent or whatever the case may be. When you have to be the person that is making those phone calls, but yet you're still like in this process of like just really like trying to process and grieve at the same time. Like it's, you know, trying to explain like something that you don't even understand, right? Like you're really like trying to articulate something that in your mind you're completely oblivious to, because you don't even know like why, you know. And you know, we're not even gonna talk about why it happened. We're gonna talk about like how, you know, things happen, and you know, when it happened, and you know, just the suddenness of it all. And it was just really just very difficult to have to deal with. So and I say that because, you know, when you're going through these processes of grief and loss and sorrow, it's important to have people around you. Now, I do know that sometimes people don't want other people around them, because this is a very vulnerable state to be in. When somebody passes away, it is one of the most vulnerable things to have to you know, talk about, right? Because it's, you know, those wounds can go very, very deep. And you don't, it's not even just about talking about it. It's like you don't even know what to say, you know. If you've ever had people come up to you and say, man, like, I don't even really know what to say. Like, I want to, you know, be able to comfort you, but I don't even really know what to say. Well, the person on the other end of that doesn't really know what to say either. So it's mutual, right? The people that are trying to comfort you don't know what to say, and then you don't really even know how to articulate it. And so, you know, that happened, you know, in 2016 with my son. You know, and it's still fresh. I was just telling somebody the other day that I could literally like remember like pretty much everything. I remember what people said. I remember people's body language. Obviously, I remember like what I was told. I remember being in it was late. So his surgery was like the last surgery. I remember being in the waiting room by myself. You know, I remember being asked to just, you know, get his, because we were in a room waiting, you know, we were in a room because he had got admitted, but we were waiting for the surgery to take place. And I remember being asked to get his clothes and to wait downstairs. And of course, you don't know, like, no, I don't have any idea that this was going to be something that was, going to be permanent. I thought, oh, I just need to take his clothes because they're moving him. I don't, I didn't know. Nobody could have ever, like, told me that this is something that would happen to, my son and my family. So just was very hard to, like I said, to process. Still is, you start to think about it, you can rehash all those moments, and anytime you think about it, it can be very, it can re-traumatize you. So, just really learning how to process those, have people around you. Sometimes even if you don't want to, maybe just have one person. People used to say, like, to me, like, even if you don't want to talk, if you just want, like, another person's presence. And sometimes that is so good to be able to have another person that's in the room that is present with you, even if they don't say anything. And I've had that, and I, was so grateful to have that. So that happened in 2016. And then, my after that, my mom, which was like less than a year from my son passing away, my mom had a stroke. And her, and I do know that there are people that do have strokes that, are stroke survivors, so to speak. But in this particular case, my mom didn't, survive, and she was having a very, very difficult time after the stroke. And then what had begun to happen with her was she lost, the stroke actually did some things to her where she wasn't, like, really herself. And I don't know per se if that's what caused her to stop eating, but she's, had basically stopped eating. And we all know that who can survive, for a long period of time if they don't have a desire to eat or to drink. And, that was just very difficult just to see, her in that particular position. And, all of us love, my mom was just, like, a really sweet person and very kind, very generous, and just to have that happen to her and to watch, those type of things take place is just really hard, So, for those of you that have had, the loss of a mother, or have had, like, someone in your family that has, like, suffered from a stroke or some type of health situation, and thinking that maybe possibly that they would be able to pull through it, because there are other people that have pulled through, things like strokes and those type of things. But for whatever reason, she didn't. And I just really think my mom was, like, really tired. I think that, she was in her 70s, and I just really just think that she was tired. And I think that fatigue, was maybe part of the reason why she, didn't, hold on. I'm not for sure, but that's just my thoughts around it. So my mom wound up passing away, like I said, a year, less than a year from my son. And she passed away in 2017. And then my brother, God rest his soul, he was going through, like, the same type of grief and everything that, I was going through, because him and my mom were, like, extremely close, and, they lived together. So that was, like, very hard on him, but we were there, really to support each other. And then, those type of situations, if you've ever had, like, issues with, like, your siblings or other family members, things can go either one or two ways when it comes to somebody passing away. Either it's going to drive a wedge in your relationship and push you further apart, or something is going to happen to bring you guys together, right? And to bring you guys on the same page. And for me and my brother, yes, at first it was very stressful, because there were things about my mom's care that we weren't on the same page with. But after she passed away, a few weeks after she passed away, we really got closer. And I think we kind of felt like, my dad had already passed away. And, it was just us, and, of course, my daughter was still in the picture. And, he had kids too, or has kids, that are still here. And so, but he had health issues of his own. And just to go back to what I was saying about, like, even if that people have health issues, even when they, but he died like suddenly. My brother had a lot of health issues, and he got very close to passing away quite a few times, where he was on a ventilator, and he had a heart condition and everything. So it was like that type of on and off type of thing. But he wound up, weirdly enough, he wound up passing away suddenly as well, and literally like fell asleep. He really fell into death. His had a heart attack while he was driving on the expressway, and thankfully, like, he like hit a divider, like a one of the plastic dividers on the side, and he was found unresponsive. They did try, and so but he had gone through so much that health wise, there was no way that I expected him to pass away. I thought, yeah, when people like are like that, it's like a cat with nine lives. They just continue to come back, and so you have all of these like deaths like back to back. And one thing that I do know is that and I'm a believer, so I definitely have been putting my trust in the Lord. But what I would admonish everybody to do, and I know everybody on here may not be a Christian, I definitely admonish you to seek out a higher power, than yourself, and I also recommend therapy. It was something that I was kind of late in the game with, even concerning my son. It's something I definitely should have talked about many moons ago, because I really did need to talk to somebody about that trauma and that loss, and then to have my mom and then my brother, it was just a lot. So if you have had multiple deaths in the family, and loved ones, or multiple losses of things that have happened to you, like they lose their house. People have had tragedies where they've lost their house was destroyed, or they get evicted, they fall on hard times. I've had pretty much everything happen to me, unfortunately. Evictions, I've had lost cars and all types of things. I've been laid off jobs, I've gotten fired. It's just a bevy of things, and some of that stuff you're going to grieve. Some of that stuff is going to really like wear on your heart. It's going to really like weigh you down. And so we need to be able to pray to have that stuff lifted off our hearts. But we also need to seek therapy. We need to talk to somebody professional, if at all possible, so that we can be able to move past those things. So I just really thank you guys for your time. I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that we can continue to be transparent. Please feel free to subscribe, and comment and share as much as possible. I will be back with more, and hopefully, like I said, that you'll be able to get as much out of this as you need to. Thank you so much. Bye.